order the Westford Conservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, March 26, 2025. This meeting is being broadcast live by Westford Cable Access TV and recorded for playback online. By attending this meeting, you are consenting to your likeness and audio being included in that recording. The first item on our agenda at 7 p.m. is open forum. Do any members of the commission have something for open forum?
I was just gonna thank the residents of town for voting to appropriate the $890,000 for the CPA application for the acquisition of land, and be looking to move forward with that now that it has been appropriated.
That was what you were going to say too?
No, I just said.
Oh.
That's what I wanted to say. Okay.
Oh, okay. Did you have something you wanted to say?
No.
No, okay. Do any members of the audience have something for open forum? No, okay. So, it's not 7:10 yet, so should we take a couple of
Yeah, we can take a couple of the
discussion?
later, or some of the later agenda items,
Okay,
just as there's no time for them. I'm listed for them. Or we'll give you discussion items. Your choice.
well, so if we want to do some of the discussion items, you mean like the request to work? between the-
Yes.
Okay,
That and from the builder out at 71 Powers Road, this order of conditions was issued in the commission a couple of years ago. The builder and developer reached out middle of last week looking to commence work now that the snow has melted, ground's been thawed. They're looking to get going, and the email was included in the commission's packet. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer, with April 1st also being 4 work days away.
can I have a motion to approve the request to work between December 1st and April 1st at 71 Powers Road?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You want to do the enforcement orders next?
Yes.
Okay.
And following up from the certificate of compliance request at the commission's last meeting for DEP file number 334-1787 at 30 Magnolia Drive, following up on the discussion about the increase of impervious area, should be mitigated with some additional renaturalization of the lawn area between the pool fence and the established vegetation within the lawn area. So following up, last week I did draft and send an enforcement order detailing the commission's desire on that, and cited that the lawn area within the 30-foot buffer within 30 feet of the BVW shall not be maintained and are allowed to renaturalize except for the 3 to 4 feet directly adjacent to the installed pool fence. 2 of the other ordered items were to have photographic documentation that it was occurring, so not just waiting until the end of the year. So in June and in September, we'll be following up to ensure that area is renaturalizing per the commission's request at their last meeting. And as this was issued, as I issued this acting as agent of the commission, I respectfully request the commission ratify this.
Any questions? Can I have a motion to ratify the enforcement order issued to 30 Magnolia Drive?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there something we need to sign?
No, because again, that was So as I issued it, it's just,
So
the process is ratifying it afterwards. I think the intent is that in the event I was wrong, or, there needs to be some then, the commission can say, well, based upon this new information, no, we're rescinding it.
Or issuing a revised.
Yeah, or if something, yeah. So I think it's just so that, again, the commission having jurisdiction is the body ultimately approving and okaying these types of things.
We also want to deal with the ratifying the emergency certificate for the Texas Road culvert.
Included in the revised commission's meeting packet for tonight, at the request of the Department of Public Works Director, and as ordered as the current sinkhole within Texas Road, the location shown, it is a corrugated metal culvert, a perforated corrugated metal culvert that has, I think, rusted to become a greater perforation. And as such, a sinkhole has developed. A resident reached out to us to notify DPW of the sinkhole. They've marked it with a traffic cone to avoid further any disturbance there. Photos of the culvert, the existing culvert inlet and outlet. The Department of Public Works and the engineering department are intending to replace it with upsize the diameter of pipe 3 inches with poly. With a high density polyethylene pipe, set in the same location and at the same elevation. New precast concrete head walls are proposed. Again, currently it's kind of just a field stone construction of a time, and they intend to install erosion controls and ensure that no silted water or erosion impacts the wetland resources in proximate to the site. They're looking in kind of the next 1 to 2 weeks on lining up a contractor and making sure that materials are available. As a public agency ordering the work to be performed, as the Department of Public Works Director deemed this a safety hazard, as in the event of a complete failure of the culvert, approximately 20 houses on Texas Road would be left without access. I issued the emergency certification on behalf of the commission, and once again respectfully requesting that the certification be ratified.
Any questions? No. Can I have a motion to ratify the emergency certificate for Texas Road culvert replacement?
So, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to our 7:10 PM agenda item, we have a continuation of a public hearing for 85R Acton Road.
Good evening.
Good
Will
evening.
you be able to put the exhibit up?
Oh, of course.
Okay, good, just wanted to make sure, came prepared just in case. Okay. So you've already opened the hearing, correct?
Yes,
Madam Chair, thank you.
and we opened it and continued without discussion.
Yeah, very good, thank you. So good evening, I'm Peter Bemis with Engineering Design Consultants, and on behalf of James and Caitlin Hayes, and this is not Caitlin, I'm here to present the proposal. So this property, I probably should start with, because there's an outstanding order of conditions. So we did submit request for COC, and it's a simple one, so if you don't mind dealing with that, it's
Sure.
an order that was on record. You already issued a certificate for the actual construction of this property, but somehow this got overlooked. Matt was very kind to help me find this because it was buried at the registry. And so I have submitted a request for a COC for work not completed. And that's basically what this application is. And we really shouldn't have an open order. We're asking you for another one, and we should close this out before we
I can't really say it any better. And would recommend the commission issue this certificate of compliance for this file as, I think I included the, so this is aerial imagery from 2001, when the new notice of intent was issued, for which the house was constructed. And as seen, there's very well vegetated and no work appeared to have been performed. So would recommend the certificate of compliance be issued as it's invalid.
Can I have a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for DEP file number 334-0661?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
thank you. And so again, 85R Acton Road, we are a lot that is set back in the rear, designated by R. And the wetland resource areas here were identified by the North Environmental. I was able to visit the site with Matt and kind of walked it, and personally didn't see an issue with any of the flags. Matt can speak for any of his observations. We did field locate them with survey on the ground, and the topography here beyond the work area, because what we do is we collect topography as we're doing the collection, but we wanted to have a better feel for this entire site because there are two intermittent streams that flow through the site. So that information is derived from the LiDAR basis. So it gives us a good idea of what's happening hydrologically as well. So we've got two intermittent streams that are both going off to the northeast. I believe it eventually reaches a water body in Chelmsford. And there is a floodplain associated with this wetland, but it is not defined by FEMA other than being a graphical. And what we do when we find that is, again, we go out, we're looking at the field conditions, and we're looking at the TOA slope. And that did line up quite well, actually, with FEMA's designation, because they can rely on the LiDAR data too today, which they didn't really have back in the day. Started doing those maps. So the 50-foot buffer zone is shown on here. There's a lawn within the limit areas of what we wish to for our activity areas. So all of the work that we're proposing will happen within a lawn area. The first thing I would describe to you is a pool that I wish to put in the rear of the house. So that's right here. This is an above ground pool. It doesn't require a great deal of excavation. What I'm doing to be a little creative here is actually making it so that we can honor this contour and put it onto the grade that's there. But to achieve it, we do a bit of a cut in the back so that the pool walls are not infringed on with the grade. And then we're going to put a deck over it. So this will just be crushed stone underneath the deck, and that's what's called out here. So for purposes of you seeing it at the site, you would see just the pool itself at this end, and then it would appear as though it was a in-ground pool, if you will, at the level of the living space of the home. It's not a big pool, and it doesn't really displace much area, if you will. And as far as stormwater is concerned, all of this crushed stone would be able to handle that rainfall that would fall on it. This is an open deck, so it would have seams in it. So the water would just continue to go through, and this is a fairly well-drained area in the upland, if you will, because it's all gravel below it. You would say there's a lot of wetlands here, and that someone would describe it as poorly drained. And it's only just because it's got a shallow slope to get out to the area. So it's you're getting down to where the groundwater and the wetland tend to meet with each other. But this area here is high and dry. It's a gravel condition. The home well is here. It's not going to be affected by this. We've got a proposal to put an erosion control barrier around the perimeter work. So it's pretty straightforward. Access would be through the driveway. That's why we carried the erosion control right along the entire driveway, so that there was no chance for anything to get outside. This is the 50-foot buffer zone, so this is work that's proposed outside of that. The 100 is here. So for the most part, this lot is 50-foot buffer zone. The second, if I can go, if you'd like, okay, thank you, ma'am. So the second proposal is to put in a barn. This is to be located here. This is an existing paved turnout. So what we're doing is we're just going to displace the driveway a bit in this direction here to the top of the sheet, so that we can get around the structure here and try to keep it out of the buffer zone. So I put this right at the edge of the 50. When I did walk this with Matt, it looked as though this may be a little bigger than what we should have been asking for. I'd like to stick with the 40 by 60, but I am prepared to make it smaller if need be. We are mitigating our stormwater with this 100% on site, so all the roof area will drain into these chambers, and those details are on the plan for how that would work. This is the crossing that I was describing to you before, so this water flows in this direction up to the top of the sheet, and then there's another one that's back down here that's flowing out and around the home. So that's pretty much it. These are 2 buffer zone activities. They are occurring in the 50-foot buffer zone between that and the 100. No work below the 50, and if if this seems to be too much because we are close to the resource area here, I did come prepared to deal with that.
Jim?
Thank you.
As far as the above ground pool, is there any access to the pool, or it's not fenced, or is there gonna be fencing?
So this is above ground.
Yeah.
Yep. So they would have like a flip gate, if you would, here, or like a flip stair, and then the rest of it is above grade.
Essentially a gate to go up to the deck?
Correct. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You'd be able to get to it from the home, but from the ground, you would not have access.
And this would require a building permit and, would need to comply with building code and, fences.
I think if it would also serve as maybe some kind of a barrier not to proceed beyond, or to modify beyond. We're not real close with the 50-foot around the pool.
Yes, sir. I would also say that when I was here with Matt, there was a garden here. That the garden was after the survey work we did. Because I said to Matt, if this garden had been there, I would have located it when we did the work. I mentioned this to Jim, and that.
So it was snow covered at the time?
No, ma'am. No. When I was over with Matt, the land was clear.
Okay.
But I'm saying when we did our survey work, it was prior to it wasn't. They had just moved in and they didn't have a garden yet. So that was over here. And I did want to acknowledge that there is a garden that is in the 50-foot buffer zone, if you will. And they're doing good responsible gardening here because they have a little compost area and it's a nice little garden, vegetable garden. So I guess that's pretty much my presentation. I just didn't want Matt to catch me on this because we did both come around the corner. I'm like, oh, okay, that's not on my plan, Matt. So that's it. And so again, the driveway, what we're displacing here is not a significant amount of paved surface. And again, we're going to mitigate with stormwater control. There's also a filter strip along the edge of pavement here. The idea is just to get that water back into the ground efficiently.
No.
So what's the purpose of this barn?
Just a gentleman's barn. I mean, do you want to speak to this, Jim?
Yeah, we plan to put our camper in there for the winter and have a little bit of a workshop. I enjoy working on my own vehicles and just washing them, keeping them clean, vacuuming them out. I got kids that spill a lot of snacks on them. Just right now, our garage that's attached to the home is very, very, very small. And just my wife's small car fits in it, and that's it. I just like to park a pickup truck inside and be able to get in it.
So you'd have a floor drain, et cetera, thinking
No,
about if they're if gasoline, petroleum, any kind of hazardous chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, if those are going to be stored in the barn, our concern would be that they be contained
Yes, right.
Oh, yeah.
There would
So,
be.
so that's, if you're washing vehicles in there, it's kind of, if you're washing something off, where does the water go?
I meant to be able to pull a vehicle in after it was cleaned and
Okay,
do the final detail, you know what I mean?
okay,
I'm
so,
not
so
gonna
you wouldn't be washing them in there?
Inside,
Yeah.
no.
Okay.
I wasn't proposing that either.
Okay.
So there's the residential garage, like if this is a commercial property and you were driving inside it, different set of codes would control you bringing the vehicle inside. You'd have to have the drain, and then you'd have to have a holding tank. In this instance, it's a residential garage, so it's not going to trip that.
And, I mean, so, correct me if I'm wrong, but the foundation for this will have the wall, a low concrete,
concrete
yeah,
floor.
concrete will come up above, it won't
There'd be
be,
a frost wall for
Yeah,
this
so
to
the-
protect
so-
this on a slab, and this would be a full slab within the structure, so
So if,
nothing is gonna
if
drain
anything,
inside.
if a can of cleaner or whatever spilled, it would be contained within the building.
Absolutely.
No?
By the same token, by the swimming pool, would you be storing any chemicals there?
In
Where
terms
would you
of
be
for the
storing them?
backwasher?
I believe all those would be stored inside the basement of the house.
Right, are you using chlorine, or were you gonna use the ozone, or?
I believe it's gonna be chlorine.
and there is a walkout basement under here. Great.
One of the things that I had noticed was the trail that's marked.
We did, yes, ma'am. We, this trail, when they bought the property, the prior owner had created a trail system that's out here.
Yep.
And I think that the trails, if they go beyond this, and this is a large property, 9 acres?
11 acres.
11 acres, thank you. I just know it goes way up to the top here. So there's a lot of, open land there, woodland land, and there is a trail, and we located that as part of our survey work.
Okay, I was concerned as to what the trail surface was, because for example, here, it's probably only 5 or 10 feet off the edge of the wetland, so it's like, was this just something that somebody was walking? Was somebody riding a dirt bike? It's just, you
Yeah.
start to think about
Sure.
the opportunity for erosion.
Yeah, Matt and I looked at that. I mean, I think just looking at it, it was probably what was out here back in the day. So this property was owned by someone that apparently lived or had a business down the street. They ended up developing some of those frontage lots, I believe. I'm going back like a couple decades, if not more. But this was probably the access way into the site. They predate that.
So if you can,
Because if you could come to the mic and tell us who you are so we can get your good information.
Hi, I'm Bob Cerrone. I live at 65 Slade Road, which is off the bottom of the sheet of paper here. I'm actually the abutter directly behind you. The original owner of that house was, can't remember his first name, but his last name was Landry. They owned what is now the mobile station by Hart Pond. And they lived in there. Prior to that, it was part of the whole Spruce Acres development, which I'm one of the original owners when they built that. I don't know anything prior to that, but the development was built in 1978, so we've been there for a while.
Okay,
and the trail looked to be the width of an ATV, so again, when that was occurring, it didn't appear recently used.
Okay.
There wasn't the disturbances consistent with
and there
ATV
wasn't
trails.
evidence of erosion where the slopes were steep?
No, it seemed to be fairly stable.
Okay, just looking at paper, I see questions.
Yes, ma'am. No, without a doubt. We just weren't going to ignore it. We saw it on the site. That's why we located it.
And that's good, it just, now's the time to ask the questions. One other thing, with our plans of record, we like for a structure where you're adding new structures is on the plan to indicate the closest, the distance between the closest point and the wetland, so that, it's very clear this is how close you're getting, just for a matter of record.
Right now, it's at the 50-foot buffer zone, so that's why I
So,
said that if
yeah,
you felt uncomfortable with that,
this is
I'd
at
make the
50.
adjustment.
Okay.
The green line is the 50, and then the upper green line is the 100. So we did them, color coded them so you could see them.
And certainly, this lot was developed after the commission adopted this buffer setbacks, which is why everything is tucked within. So at the time of development, the no disturb buffer was at 50 feet, and the building setback was no closer than 75. In reviewing the order of conditions, which has for the construction of the house, the commission did require a physical barrier, and I think a split rail fence was present up through just prior to the sale, and I think that was kind of the demarcation of that 50-foot no disturb buffer, and again trying to figure out at what point and when, because there certainly is an area, kind of north. I don't know, where's the plan?
I thought it was at the top of the
Yeah, it is
screen.
actually north. Oh wow. Plan, top of the plan is north for once. There is an area within the the 0 to 50-foot wetland buffer that is, doesn't have mature vegetation, has kind of been kind of cleared over time. And with the proposed barn being located within kind of that 75 to 50, granted this, the original lot was developed in 01, 02 timeframe. One of the questions for the commission is, would you be amenable to kind of, reviewing this with the wetland setbacks of 55, no structure closer than 55 feet, if, that 50-foot no disturb buffer, kind of make it a combination of the no disturb or the no build setback from a prior disturbed site and, maintaining the no disturb buffer of, with which the lot was constructed. Something for your consideration. Because as discussed, the barn is at 50, the corner of it is, so if, can be reduced to be consistent with the 55-foot no build setback of a previously disturbed site.
So you're saying that do we have the plan of record from when the house, the original construction? In terms of identifying what the limit of work was?
I can find, it'll be easier to find the order of conditions.
Okay.
And again, I don't think the wetlands changed substantively.
No, I was just thinking is where the limit of clearing was, and was there additional clearing within the 50-foot that occurred afterwards?
Yes, so I think the clearing within the 50-foot occurred sometime within the last 10 years.
So you're talking about
This area in here, and again, there
Okay.
is a bit of a garden that's probably in this general area. So, this general area,
where it looked, in some cases.
it doesn't have the same, mature tree canopy as, the remainder of the site.
So if you're following the edge of the tree line, it looks like it almost, well, and I don't know if the slope would play into a lack of woods or tree vegetation, but was the open portion of the lot increased over time from what was originally approved?
I think so. And again, in reviewing some aerial imagery, split rail fence is seen kind of within, appears to be consistent with the 55-foot no disturb, the present 55-foot buffer to the
So that may have
wetland.
been identified as a that may have been originally installed as a limit of clearing?
I think so, and a limit of future disturbance. Again,
Okay.
there are the driveway was and still is lined with large boulders and the top of slope here. So again, I don't know what was cleared when, but I mean, I do think there is an opportunity for renaturalization, reestablishment of a 55-foot buffer that, particularly in this general location.
Where the slope is steepest?
We're
And-
amenable to that too, and I was gonna say that one observation that I had with Matt was that you could see that there were some larger trees that had come down, and these weren't freshly cut by any stretch. And when I was mentioning to Matt was that this open woodland had a bunch of brothers and sisters next to these trees. They opened it up and cut the trees down, then you have these microburst type storms that happen, and it probably took down a few of these trees over time from the different owners. I know Jim had shown me a picture of one that came down on his camper. So it was definite, there's been some storms, they've lost some trees, and that is not unusual for a site like this that was really in the middle of the woods that got opened up. And when you're going to it's vulnerable on those edges. So I suspect that might have happened somewhere in that zone because it's much wider than it is anywhere else. And the only thing I could think of is that it's on a slope. They probably were the most vulnerable trees, and those are the ones that came down.
Especially if it's gravelly soil and they potentially had shallow roots?
Correct. So I said to Matt, we're very amenable to creating a buffer zone again.
Okay.
And it would be, we'd be able to do so in a manner that could diversify the flora a bit because it's kind of static out there, you don't have.
You don't want really tall white pines.
No, but also what I said to Matt is, my observation was there's just not a lot of very trees out there, and that would be attractive for birds. So the thought was that maybe we could do that. Get some winterberry in there, get some highbush blueberry and things like that, and they'll thrive even though it's not in a wet area. It doesn't have to be a wet foot. It just needs to have a good environment to grow in.
Unrelated question, is the net increase in non-permeable surface about 750 square feet? See, 580 removed and 1330.
Is proposed, right, and then we're infiltrating everything that we create, the new surface area. So I didn't, the math on that, I'm pretty damn close. I wasn't trying to be either. Was that in your regulations, the 750?
No, we're just trying to see if you're increasing.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's, so basically that's we're about, if that's what you calculated, then that's what it is.
1330 minus.
Okay, yeah, then that's what it is, but 100% of the surface area is to be mitigated with that filter strip and the infiltration systems. So any new impervious area, or frankly existing, is going to be captured within the work area.
Did you have any other?
No.
Do any members of the audience have comments or questions on this application? If you come to the mic and tell us who you are, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Greeter. I live at 85 Acton Road. If you look at this diagram up on, go off to the west of it, that's my property. This property has an easement directly into my property. I want to talk about, so first of all, I want to thank Mr. Salem. I had a hard time getting these documents. I tried to reach out to the engineer based on the document that got sent out to everybody in the letter, and have contact information. I've got a call back. But thank you, Matt, for sending this over to me. I had a chance to take a look at it myself. Really just 2 points. I think with respect to the pool, like my wife and I, we want to fully support them doing this. They have a young family. This seems to be a pretty reasonable request. So I would encourage everybody, so long as there's no environmental concerns or concerns from any other abutters, I think that makes total sense.
As long as they invite.
With respect to the barn, I'm definitely concerned about that. This is nothing that James hasn't heard. I've had the opportunity to speak to him directly about it. My backyard gets surface water every spring. And when it's heavy rain, same thing. That has been a problem for years here, and I know that there's talk that there is mitigation going to be done for the ground here. One thing I haven't seen, I have had the opportunity to read this document. I've actually run it by an engineer myself because I'm not a civil engineer. I don't know, and I'd be curious to better understand how that's going to be mitigated. Have there been soil samples done to make sure that that groundwater is going to be taken care of? If you look at this, if you look at page 25 in the application, there's an outline that basically shows that floodplain and basically makes like a C fixture around the property. That's the FEMA.
Yeah, it's the blue,
The blue line,
Yep.
yeah. So these things have shifted every year. I've lived at my house for 11 years now. And every year we get different water patterns in the backyard and things like that. I can see it off in the distance from my house to an extent. I would like to understand exactly how that mitigation is going to be proven out in detail. Conversely, my well is at the back of my property. And if there's going to be dredging going on and topping off of this hill or disturbing it, I'd like to understand if that's going to impact my well 5-10 years down the line. And yes, I know I'm asking about scenarios where there may be too much water on the surface and too much in the ground, but those are different things, groundwater and surface water, and they could take different paths to get there. I have a sump pump in my home. I believe one of my neighbors does as well. Those things go off and they fire off frequently when we have thaws. And I guess I'm coming here today just concerned about what potential disruption this may have, because it's, as you can see, it's relatively close to my land. Like I said, with the pool, we want to fully support that. I think that's totally reasonable, but with the barn, we definitely have. And I know the purpose of this commission is very much so with the environmental aspects. I'm concerned that it may shift these things so that the environment may be at odds with my property and my investment. Thank you.
Be happy to answer it, please, when you're ready. I'll be happy to answer his points when you're ready. So Matt, if you don't mind, could you just zoom in to this portion of the plan, just if you can pull it over, and then can you go out a little bit? Yeah, there you go. So right now, this is basically a drainage divide between our two properties. So anything from the gentleman who just spoke's property, that's going to drain in this direction towards the brook, okay? Because this is all up gradient of any activity that we're performing. The water has to flow through this culvert and come across. Anything through this area here is going to come down basically onto the proponent's property. So this gentleman's property drains onto the proponent's property. From here over, all of our water, so now can you pan just out just a little bit more for me, please, this way now? Yeah. So anything here is going to flow back to the same design point here in this culvert. That's why we put this mitigation here. So all of this is going to capture the stormwater and process it on the lot. These septic system areas were tested. They were done with your Board of Health, and the septic systems went in. That's what we were using as the basis for the underlying soil conditions. And the Soil Conservation Service mapping confirms what these soil conditions are. This is basically like an esker, if you think about it from a geology, morphology perspective. When the glaciers were receding, they would form these types of areas where it's depositing sands and gravels. This whole area is just a big outwash area, and you get these kind of conditions, and it's very well drained within this portion of it. This lower portion of it, however, it's going to be wet seasonally. This will dry up in the summertime, respond to heavy rain events. Sometimes they'll still have some ponding associated with them, but for the most part, they do drain well. In the wet season, we're at the high groundwater impact for the entire region. So that this area that goes to the north, and I remember mentioning about everything draining to Chelmsford, that water body, there's not a great deal of grade change from here down to there. That's why this was identified by FEMA as part of the floodplain associated with this wetland that is then bordering on that water body that's to the north, directions here.
Yeah,
Northeast?
Northeast.
Yeah, northeast, I think it's northeast is where it goes. So, so I think that the abutter should be rest assured that any water that's on the Hayes' property is gonna come to this intermittent stream. It's not gonna somehow jump the stream. And this stream's very defined, and the culvert is fine. Now, when I was here with Matt, I did observe that there was some brush behind this, and I had mentioned to Jim, you know, you gotta keep that cleared. Having some maintenance right here is a good idea, but downstream, there's no erodible surfaces. Like, if you thought about all of this trapping it a bit, and some of that water then rushing through here, because it's getting this released, you'd think you'd see some scouring right here. There's none. It's a very well-defined channel, and it's not, I don't think the watershed that's here is very large. So the fact that the house was built, how the house was built, they probably got the basement down a little low, and that's why the sump pump runs a lot seasonally. We can't change that. That's not something we're gonna impact or affect. This water that's gonna come from our impervious surface areas here will have sufficient freeboard to drain into the ground and then be absorbed by the ground and transferred through the watershed.
Jim?
Other calculations about what storm those, I guess they are. The recharge.
Yeah, we use basically a formula that the manufacturer provides us with, so it's a surface area of the structure. And that's in accordance with the building code. So I don't remember the exact formula, but that was based upon the 40 by 60 structure. You know, we're talking about making it smaller tonight. I'm not gonna make the
40 by 60
chambers.
structure, but what storm size?
I wanna say they're like 25-year storm when they do those, sir. That's how it's typically done under building code. Because we're using the manufacturer's data for the product. And that's the amount of storage that it would have. My guess is the gravels that are there are gonna be so well drained that they're actually gonna absorb that added water in a higher event, but it has a place for it to go. If it does pond up, it's gonna be on the surface adjacent to that structure. If it was somehow not gonna be absorbed by the ground. What I was gonna say to you is, we're talking about making the structure smaller. I would not make those chambers smaller as a result of that
We're talking about making
reduction.
them smaller. I just don't know what size they're built to accommodate.
I think it's 25-year storm is the way the manufacturer does it.
No?
What's the gradient like from his property to down to the stream?
Yeah, so you can see the contours here. So is that 205, sir? I can't see that
Yeah.
far.
It's 5 feet.
Yeah, so they're 1 foot contours. So then if we would take this from here and then just go up, so it's what, 1, 2, 3,
10.
4, 5,
Yeah, so
6.
I think this darker
dark
line
one?
is 210.
10.
And that gets carried, and that kind of starts.
Well, actually, if you
So
slide
here's
down,
210,
yeah.
and it continues here, and then,
So we're
Returns
about the
back.
same elevation as that with the barn, because this is saying it's at 212. The driveway down here, I think that's 210?
yes, that's
Thank you.
210.
Actually, by the same token, does it slope back then?
This gentleman's property, I
Right.
believe it goes up.
So is
the
that
street here.
210 the highest point there? The one, yeah, that one, is it the highest point?
Well, no, that would be 11, 12, 13, 14.
Keeps going up?
Again, yeah, this is from LiDAR. It's just pretty accurate. And a lot of sites, you know, corroborate our ground survey.
So it's going up?
Yes, sir, it's going up. That's why I said, I think when they maybe built this home, they might have gotten the base of the foundation closer to that groundwater table so that seasonally, they could have a wet, you know, area, and that's why they need the sump pump to pump that water.
So today, with the barn not there today, when it rains heavily there, the water actually does the water infiltrate there, or is it basically running across the surface down the grades to the?
Your lawn, I mean, you have grass here now, you
Okay, so-
don't have any ponding here, though, no.
No, but I was thinking in terms of if today the surface water flows towards the intermittent stream.
Yes.
Once you've got the barn in place with the infiltration, that will actually get more of the water to drain there as opposed to flowing across the surface.
Yes, ma'am, that's right, yeah, there'll be less going in this direction. I mean, this paved surface is still gonna come down, but we also put an interceptor here as well, so that this part of the driveway would also have a drain.
So there'll be a slight decrease in the amount of water going across the surface towards the intermittent stream.
That's our intent.
It doesn't say that anywhere here.
No, but in,
A stamped engineered drawing.
Well, no, sir, it does, that's what this,
Is that?
well, that's what this is, sir. This is a,
Right, that's the.
it's a stone swale along the edge of the
Right.
driveway. There's a detail for that on the plan,
Okay, yep.
okay? So, and there's another one here.
so I'm just basically, if you're doing infiltration, that means you're taking the water directly into the ground in that location, as opposed to today, some of it may flow across the surface.
I don't see where the stone driveway filter strip or the Coltech recharger chambers mention the amount of rainstorm that they'll accommodate.
No, so, sir, I mean, typically for a home, for this type of project at this scale and scope, we don't do a hydrologic study. If you ask us to, we can do it, we know how to do it.
You're building two drains, one on each side, how do you
Yes,
know how
sir.
big to make them?
Again, because of the manufacturer gives you a recommendation for the amount of surface area of your roof. So we're following a formula that we've been using now for I would say for the last 20 years. This is gonna be the first site I put these chambers in on. We do them for most of our single-family homes. Because we're mitigating stormwater almost every project we do today. You do a new construction, you're gonna mitigate your stormwater. And these chambers, there's 4 of them to take off the surface area of this roof.
So this
And
is
in a gravel soil condition, that's very common. And it's not just the chamber and gravel, there's stone with it, sir.
I don't see where it says in your details how much is
There's not, there is. I'm just saying to you that we're trying to
So,
mitigate that.
try to move, would the civil engineer be able to say, so the roof is being infiltrated by the Caltech?
There's 2 of them.
Right, yeah, the 2 Caltech chambers.
That's what it-
The new driveway, what is the stone the filter strip, the infiltration along the edges, is that just based upon, because it talks, the detail says 12-inch minimum, depth, 24-inch minimum wide, is there for the impervious, for this new impervious area down here, again, even, what's going to, can it be specified as to what, there's that much new impervious for the driveway? And is this, is the area going to actually, is it sufficient? We need, 100 linear feet and, we have.
Again, that's, based upon the work that we've done on projects in gravel conditions like this site, that's efficiently taking the water off, so it's not gonna run off, it's gonna go into that stone. And the stone's 40% voids, that's how we look at that. So there's a volume of storage, and then the surrounding soils, because they're gravels, are gonna absorb that water. This is more than enough, based upon, again, experience with sites like this. To do nothing, that would bring the question, okay, where's this water gonna go? It's gonna run off on the surface. Will it erode that surface? So by doing this, it won't run off the surface. It's gonna get captured along the edge, and it's gonna be brought into the ground efficiently.
But it's not like if you're doing a large development where you start to get into stormwater calculations.
Yes,
This
ma'am.
project doesn't rise to the size of a project where you start to get into those
We
calculations.
typically do not, that's right.
You rely on, so you go with the infiltration systems, the manufacturer says if this is how big your roof surface is, this is how you size your system, and that becomes the science for determining the size of your infiltration systems.
And these aren't small chambers, sir, that this is a fairly robust chamber. Because they make them in different sizes. I mean, you might have seen Storm Techs, they're the big ones, they're like 53 inches in an arch. These are not that big, but that's a good size
This just doesn't say
storage
anything.
chamber.
Maybe you're referring
Fairly
to
standard.
advertising literature from the companies that make them, but it doesn't say anything about that here.
No, sir, I'm not implying that it does.
I can certainly find previous examples of projects in town where we've used, where that didn't require stormwater, a stormwater report but they did provide where they've been used in similar, single-family houses to, single-family developments or.
So we've seen other filings where this type of approach has been used to infiltrate runoff
Yes.
from.
Yes, without a
addition or
full,
whatever.
without a full stormwater report. I'd have to do some research and some digging, but again, these are fairly common.
I'm not asking for a full
Practices.
stormwater
No.
report, just a statement by the engineer that the sizing of the roof drains is sufficient to satisfy whatever your storm and the roadway.
So that would be something that would go into as one of the
It
findings,
could go onto a note someplace on here.
but even it's.
We could update the plan and include that, sir. I mean,
Okay.
I don't have a problem with it. What I'm just saying to you is that typically that footprint of that barn is very similar to your 4-bedroom home, suburban home. And we put one of those on each corner with the stone. That's why we do it this way, is that there's 2 of them on each side of that, doing the same thing. So it's just, I don't know how many times, I've probably done this hundreds of times, and I guess you probably just haven't seen it as much as, we see it and do it, so.
Just don't see a statement of
Yeah.
any sort
No, sir.
saying what it's
We've
size.
I've not had to before, but I can do it, that's fine. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
So I'm trying to address the neighbors' concerns. One, it's higher up, so the flow should not matter. Second is his concern about groundwater, because if there's buildup there, it could creep up. It seems like it's more than 5 feet.
Is because we're doing infiltration.
Right.
On site, we're not going to be sending any more water in the direction of the intermittent stream, so there will be not an increase of flow onto the adjacent property. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. And the other thing, if you feel as though it was really important to address the neighbor's concern, and I don't, know what circumstances he's having here on his property, but what we can do, because we're doing this work on the driveway anyways, is that we can put an overflow, if you will, like this would be able to come back and come over to here, because any water that's getting, caught here, if you will, I can't see that invert,
2095.
okay. So that that's controlling this side of it, but if you come down on this side, that water, believe me, wants to go, it's gonna wanna go northeast. It's not going to go southwest. It's just not gonna happen. It's not what it does. It's looking for its path of least resistance. So, we could easily do that if that's what you'd like to see happen here. So that there's a way to ensure that the water goes in this direction. I mean, that's where it's going to go anyways. Over time, the gradient is all to go to the northeast. This is a much lower gradient.
What did you just say? What could you do?
We could just put like a 4-inch pipe, because I wouldn't want anything large anyways. I'm just saying that if these were to be overcome from infiltration, and even this trench right here, we can just have a small little area where they both just percolate back out to the ground surface.
So it gets to the intermittent stream after the crossing as opposed to before the
Downstream.
crossing.
That's all I'm saying, is it would just make it better for everyone.
Does that work better?
Yeah, I mean, that certainly is consistent with, and it kind of addresses both in the event of, if this is designed for a 25-year storm, you get the 100-year storm. You're not going to be sending water back up, up the drain spouts.
And having all that extra water have to go through the driveway crossing.
Right, because this is the 5, the 4, the 3, the 2. I mean, this is going down, I wouldn't say rapidly, but it's, we're well below this home, and we're good 10 feet below this area here. So, I mean, the water is going to go this way. It is not going to go that way.
You have a question?
Yeah, I'm Patrick Timlin. I live at 87 Acton Road, so I'm downstream, one more from everybody, north on this picture. That was my concern was the infiltration. I guess it's sort of like a leaching field kind of thing.
Yeah.
That seemed okay because it's just adding to the groundwater. I was more concerned about water being redirected to the northwest towards our houses. So I'm wondering if adding the pipe is going to add more water directly from the property that used to be absorbed more towards our houses. I have a walkout basement. I have a sump pump and a French drain in my basement. And usually from March to about June, it runs pretty much continuously by sump pump.
When was your house constructed, if I may ask?
78.
78, okay. And so this kind of ties back into one of my other thoughts is some of these houses, particularly on Acton Road, were constructed prior to the state's wetlands, the adoption of the state's Wetlands Protection Act. And not saying that, and let me guess, your septic system's in the front of the house?
Correct.
Yeah. So they built these houses where they could, when they could, prior to the regulations that we currently have to kind of mitigate these situations. And, again, where I made a note to look at the 85 Acton residents septic plan and see where the estimated seasonal groundwater was. And, I'm going to make a note to look at yours as well, because I feel like that's, the septic, and I'm fairly certain the estimated seasonal high groundwater, as documented when they were installing the septic system, is going to be very close to the bottom of your the bottom of the basement. And there's probably, I'd have to check with general building practices now, but I don't think they would allow, your house may not be, your house may be constructed in a different manner today than, and so, I think some of these conditions are, the sins of the past that, kind of have, and I understand your concern about not wanting more to get discharged to it, but especially where the existing lot is developed as is, with the floodplain, present there, the addition of 1,000 square feet of, impervious area, I don't think is going to substantially change, outside of, a biblical level storm event. The typical rain events, will be captured, infiltrated, and, be directed better to the groundwater as opposed to, just kind of the surface flows and flushes, initial flushes.
Yeah, we don't get surface water too much. I mean, it's mushy out there, but it's all coming, pushing up into the basement.
Yeah.
Are you saying it's gray water that's making its way?
No, it's rainwater.
Rainwater.
It's just all swampy back there. It's all skunk and cabbage out there. It's just,
Yeah.
you get a few.
That's a wetland.
That's my fence, and it's just all muddy, and you can't really use it for much.
Back in the 70s, you can see models in the soil. There was models in the soil back then, but I'm old, so I've been doing this for a long time too. And my first career was when I came out to the job site and I had my Munsell chart because I learned soil science in my college training. They're like, "What's that book? We don't do that. So just put that away." And you observed whether there was groundwater in the hole or not. And then you would design on that. Even though you might have seen modeling in the soil down 4 feet, you ignored it. And it's just a shame because it wasn't until 1995 that the state actually instituted the use of soil science for evaluating sites. So this site, Mr. Hayes' property, that was done under the new requirements, but this gentleman's home was not. So they tended to be built a little bit lower than they probably should have, and that's why they're suffering with these sump pumps running more than they should.
Okay, so
Question, we'll build it.
Yeah.
I can't speak to that.
Keep to the facts.
the infiltration systems, So the infiltration systems in all rain events up to a 25-year storm will be infiltrating water, will be infiltrating roof runoff into the ground rather than letting it flow over. And where we're talking about a pipe that would take water to beyond where the driveway crosses a stream, that's only in the case where it's a more intense storm than a 25-year storm.
That's right. So what we do is, if you look at the detail closely, there's it's like a pop-off or it allows the water to percolate back out of the chamber if it becomes overwhelmed. So instead of that, this will be a riser, so we're trying to get as much water in the ground as we can. But out of the riser, I can take a 4-inch pipe, connect it to this one. So now these will be in series with each other. Then come across and do the same thing here so that we're just controlling when the water does overflow, we're telling it where to go. And we're just getting it so that it's going downstream, because once it gets here, it's going to go in this direction to the northeast. It's not going to go to the southwest.
As opposed to being upstream from the driveway and then it taking longer for the water to make its way downstream.
Right.
Okay.
And also, again, to this gentleman's point, if you're really concerned about this, I don't have a problem putting one more chamber in on each of these. If we want to put belt and suspenders here, I'm fine, and we're going to make this building a little smaller because these chambers, it's not it's costly, but not excessively costly. We're going to do the event anyways. To add one more so that you have more storage capacity in the location. We're trying to keep it on site in Sutu. We want it in that location.
Yeah.
We could do that.
I'm not redesigning their system. I wasn't asking to add anything to it, to the design, but add a note to the two drainage systems on here to indicate how they're sized. If they're sized to accommodate a 25-year storm, say it. Okay. So that's all I was looking for. Others may have other concerns, but
Well, and I
want to
think,
make sure that this new driveway and this new barn will drain into the soil, not surface runoff.
okay,
Which is why we did that. Yes, sir.
That's what I'm interested in. That's why.
If you write it in.
Yeah, right.
yeah.
One last
write it
question.
in, it'll be-
What's the maintenance like on this? Like, does it get clogged with leaves and that kind of stuff?
Yep, so I'm not sure if we go to that extent with this type of residential application and our operation and maintenance plans when we do these for our larger subdivisions. We talk about, collecting the leaves from the gutters. I mean, I would recommend just putting a leaf guard in. I'm sure Jim's not gonna wanna maintain it. So if you do something like that, that will keep the leaf matter out. These chambers, they'll last. They'll last just like your septic system should last, 50 years easily, if you maintain it. If you ignore it, they're gonna get clogged, if you let silts and sediments or debris get in them. If he puts a gutter guard on the gutters at the roof line, that should keep the debris out, then nothing else should be getting into the system.
And typically with one of the typical special conditions in an order, especially where new stormwater stormwater management features have been added. Typically, one of the kind of continuing conditions is to maintain, if they want to maintain the trench drain, the filter strip, it's encouraged to, because again, that working optimally is, how the whole system works. And when it's, and problems arise when, you get 25, like Hildreth Hills 2 winters ago when, they didn't maintain their, the riprap slope and, you have an excessive, a significant rain event and then you have the scouring and the, so maintaining it is important. And, we do typically allow, again, there'll be a special condition to, do that because again, it is a little bit of an alteration within the Commission's jurisdiction, but at the same time, we want to be encouraging that, we don't want to be limiting that activity.
So if the applicant's engineer has talked about if these are sized based on a 25-year storm and there is concern about, if we've talked about an overflow that goes
Add that to the plan.
is I think that is a step in terms of better controlling the runoff from a storm greater than 25 years.
Preventive.
Yeah. Okay. And do you have any thoughts?
At least you know you heard it, at least you know you're doing it.
And then the other piece of it, you know, in any revised plan would be, you know, to get back to reduce the size or relocate so that it's outside the 55-foot no build.
I'll do that, Matt, and I'll do the mitigation we spoke of in the field about the plantings in the.
So if someone else was looking again. we could do like that.
Okay.
So the net effect should be less water going through the stream, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir, that's right.
Because it'll, whatever, it either goes into the ground, or if it's a huge storm and it gets redirected, it will be beyond that driveway crossing.
Downstream of the crossing.
Yeah, so there'll be, yeah, it gets where it needs to go more directly. Yes, sure.
Concerning the pool, what's the winter plan? Are you draining the pool, just lowering it a little bit?
I'm not sure yet. I need to figure out
Yeah,
what the
I guess so.
manufacturer's recommendations would be for it.
To do what?
I'd have to figure out what the manufacturer's recommendations are.
I don't know if that's a concern or not. I mean, draining water out of the pool occasionally.
There's guidelines for how, especially if it is going to be a chlorinated, there's guidelines for, you know, you have to wait X amount of days and then it has become dechlorinated. And, you know, where there is, you know, certainly areas on site, you know, I'd ask that it be directed, you know, as far away from the wetland resources as possible, so it, you know, has time to filter through and, you know, don't just run the hose directly to the.
Yeah, if you want, I can put in a leaching pit for it, if you prefer us to do that. I can put that in right near
If
the.
it's needed, some pools don't need to be drained, right?
Right,
or
I'll
empty.
find out, you know, from them, but if there is one, we
Right.
can include it. I'm not
You mean
trying
like
to-
something like a dry well?
Yes, exactly, just so
Yeah.
that there's a control point, so you know that it's not going to go adjacent to the resource area.
Okay.
And
And-
do that. You know,
Yeah,
something else
and-
shows that you did.
When we issue a determination, assuming we issue a positive one, there's, Matt, I think, had mentioned order of conditions, and so there are all kinds of special conditions which describe the things which include describing the things we've discussed tonight in terms of how the pool drainage, if you gotta do that, what it's going to be, maintenance of the riprap channel along the driveway. So all of that gets spelled out in terms of we're approving it, and we're approving it with the expectation that you will follow all these conditions so that all the things we've talked about tonight will be included in the project.
And one other concern, I don't know if this meeting is the right place for it, but there was a condition when the house was built from the zoning board of appeals for a curb on the driveway that's in between the two houses. And there's a dry well actually that's built down towards the stream. I don't know if you can see anymore. Yeah, so along from Macklin Road all the way down to where it curves, there used to be a curb there, and that was to mitigate water coming off of Macklin Road. My septic system is just right north of that line there.
I can certainly look to see and try to find it and let our land use staff and the building commissioner, again, that's kind of their
Okay.
realm of, but the town planner's just a wall away from me,
There's
so.
no berm there, sir? Is that, there was supposed to be, and there is?
There.
Oh, but it's been removed?
Yeah,
Was it removed by Mr. Hayes?
yeah. In his defense, though, he didn't know about it. He didn't know, he moved in, he didn't know about the
It
conditions.
was all cracked in pieces.
Oh, so it wasn't for the.
It's asphalt
Okay, well,
berm.
we can address it again then. I don't think it was intentional.
It wasn't intentional, I'm not implying that at all. He didn't know. I went out and talked to him when he was taken out. That was right before the wettest summer we've ever had. And I didn't notice any problem with my front yard, so it worked out pretty good. It was a test year for sure. But I would, if we're gonna be doing construction, I would like to maybe put some kind of berm, just even partway down to kind of keep my septic system from being overloaded.
Right, what might be better though is what we're doing down here, just to put the stone along the edge, it may be better than just to put a berm. All it's gonna do is transfer the water at a higher rate as it accumulates.
Mhm.
Whereas if we just let it shed and get into this, and what we can do is put in a perforated pipe with it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Bring it down here, that may be a more
Yeah.
efficient way of doing it, so if you don't mind, I'll look at that and we can.
Yeah, no problem.
Jim can meet with you and,
Yeah.
okay.
Is that something
If
you're
you
gonna
don't
have
mind
to?
us doing that offline, and then we'll.
Well,
but
does
we'll
that
make it-
have to be on your
Yes,
plan of
ma'am,
record?
no,
Okay.
we'd wanna roll that into this, absolutely.
My septic system is a tiny bit lower than the driveway, so it is
Okay.
conceivable water can run off down into my
It just
brand new
is,
septic system, by the way. I just had to put it in.
if it's going to be on the plan of record, that affects, our hearing dates and closing out this process. So I wanna make sure that we allow sufficient time for that conversation and any plan updates to be made, while the public hearing stays open.
And if we do, and maybe it's a combination of a berm too, but I'm just thinking if I'm gonna take all that surface water and bring it all the way down here, at some point, there's gonna be a lot more flow, cause it doesn't bleed off gradually.
It won't infiltrate.
Right, but it's gonna be captured on the driveway.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
just, all of a sudden, you're gonna be here and you've gone.
You're now discharging.
200 feet, and now you've got a flow, especially if it's a major storm event, that will erode. So I think what I'd probably do is maybe we do a combination, and I'll.
Okay,
Get
so
some
this
details for you.
this requires some thought,
Yes,
being
ma'am.
thought
No,
through.
I'm not gonna do it now.
Okay.
Right where the driveway crosses the property line into Mr. Hayes' property, there's a dry well there apparently. I
Okay,
remember they dug it in there, but it's probably.
so if we find that, then maybe we can
Yeah.
direct all the water to that's what really should happen.
Okay. Are there any more questions from members of the audience? So in terms of, so
There could be some design changes that
there's
appear
some,
in.
so there's
I
some
can
plan
continue it.
revisions that we need.
We need to continue. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm prepared to ask you to continue this evening.
Well,
When
it's
you're
just-
done.
Yeah, but it's also, okay, so do we continue to our next meeting, which is April 9th, or do we continue to the second meeting, which will be April 23rd?
ASAP, all right, then the 9th, I guess.
Okay. Matt, would we look to have a draft order at that point, or?
I can certainly have a order of conditions and special conditions with findings drafted for both the commission and public's review and yours as well.
And is it appropriate that your board meets on a Wednesday evening, knowing that you got it by, like, do you get a Friday packet, or is that how you typically do it?
Yeah, Thursday's
Thursday
better.
packet,
Thursday's
okay, all
better.
I'll do my
Friday
best.
I can work with, but
I'll
Thursday's
try.
better.
Yeah, because, and that way, the information you get to Matt, he will also have the draft order of conditions, so in
Right.
fact, we could, everything comes together, we can issue the orders,
Yep.
the conditions that night as well, which would fit your
Right.
ESAP timeline.
Okay.
Okay,
Very good.
We've been working together on a very long time on this, him and I, so.
okay.
So I move
Can I have
to
a motion?
continue to April 9th.
Can I have a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
And moving on to our 7:20 PM agenda item. It's a request, consideration of a plan change significant for the Friends of Forge Pond. Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
My name's David Barr. I'm a member of Friends of Forge Pond, Westford Health Lakes and Ponds Collaborative, local committee. We have a lot of invasive plants in Forge Pond. They're getting worse, especially in the last few years. We have, over the last 10 years or so, been working to mitigate that with winter drawdowns. A couple years ago, we came to you and requested to also be able to make use of physical plant removal in addition to the drawdowns, and that was approved. Recently, in the last, as the climate gets warmer, the drawdowns become less effective. It's harder to keep the water low because instead of snowing and staying as snow until the spring, it's more often raining and flowing into the lake and watershed, adding to the water and raising it. And in order for the drawdowns to be effective, the water needs to be low, and we need to have a couple weeks of below freezing day and night temperatures, which we're having trouble meeting that. Last 2 years in particular, we haven't had any of those conditions. This year maybe, but we don't know yet.
Okay.
In general, they're not working as well. The eco harvesting, we haven't been able to really test how well it works. We've done it for 2 years. The first year we didn't have a lot of funding for it, and there were issues with permits, which meant that it didn't get done until late August, which is not an optimal time. So it was, we had a mixed result and not a lot of information. Last year we wanted to do a much bigger treatment or eco-harvesting event. We had support from Health Lakes and Ponds, fair amount of funding from Health Lakes and Ponds, and also matching funding from Clean Lakes Committee. But unfortunately, DEP chose that time to decide that harvesting plants this way is equivalent to dredging, and that only 100 cubic yards of material could be taken out, which again extremely limited how much we could remove. That was an unusual decision. Department of Conservation Resources, consultants all agreed that this doesn't apply, but it's like a sea change, they've decided. Anyway, so last year also was not a very good test, and that not for our permits, but for permits in other lakes that were being done by the same vendor, got delayed, and the vendor would only come once, and so those were also done at a small scale and late in August. The plan for this summer was to really do our test, and we started to get a dredging permit last fall that would allow a much larger test. But DEP said that there were these and these and these and these requirements for doing the application. You couldn't start the work in the fall. You had to wait until, not even now, until May to take the samples, even though the same plants and soil was there in the fall as was going to be there in May. But we had to wait for that. So the permit won't be received until sometime in late summer or fall. So next year, we'll have to wait till next year to do the.
So this request is to do something, the request that you're bringing forward tonight is to do something in 2025? Okay,
Pardon me. So these things haven't been working well. So we're looking to do two other things that are alternatives to see, increase our options for how we can deal with this. One of them is using herbicides, which a lot of lakes use. We haven't used it for several decades in Forge Pond, but we are thinking that since we're not able to do anything else this year, we thought we would try at least a one-time trial in June and see what the effect was. So we're hoping to have the permit approved in time to do that in June. The other thing we're asking for is to use suction harvesting with divers. And that is something that we can't use this year because we got a ruling from DEP. Do they consider suction harvesting dredging also? And they said yes, even though, again, there's really no soil that comes. Any soil might get pulled out with the suction, flows back out when it all gets put into a containment vessel in the boat, and it all flows back into the lake. But they said yes, so we have to wait until we get our dredging permit before we can do that too. But since we're coming to ask for an addition to, or either an addition or a new order of conditions for the herbicides, it seemed to make sense to ask for both of them together. And then we would like to use, we were going to, Friends of Forge Pond was considering using suction harvesting for the Forge Beach this year to see what, because we're not going to be able to do treatments in the whole lake this year because of funding. But we would plan to use it next year, so we would be looking to get approval when we make this change here. With our current order of conditions, anytime we ask for an amendment or an extension or a change, we also need to get approval from Natural Heritage.
Mm-hmm.
They're allowed to take up to a month, and so they pretty much take 5 weeks. So,
You're doing that in parallel with your conversation with us?
starting to do things, well, yes, we're starting now with the expectation we'd be able to get it all done in time for June. The question that we come here for today is that there's a General Condition 13 says the work shall conform to the plans and special conditions contained in the order. General Condition 14 says any change to the plans identified in the previous condition will require us, the applicant, to inquire of you, Conservation Commission, whether the change is significant enough to require the filing of a new notice of intent. So that's our question today, whether we need to do that. Just one last thing.
Okay.
I'd say is that we had the same situation a couple years ago when we wanted to add physical plant harvesting. And at that time, it was agreed that it made sense to, rather than create a new order of conditions, a new notice of intent, a new order of conditions, and then have these things running in parallel, we have to manage them separately and extend them separately and all that. It made sense to, anytime we're doing these kinds of things in the lake, included in a umbrella lake management.
A comprehensive.
You're right, yeah.
Okay.
And so that is hopefully what we will do this time, and we could add these other methods to what's already in our order of conditions, and rather than treating it separately.
Any questions?
I really appreciate that you have been putting off using any sort of herbicides on this water. I know you didn't come to this decision lightly.
Right.
So I support this, and I really hope that you get your permit to suction harvest for next year.
Yeah. We have met several times with professionals, lake management professionals. We have a Friends of Forge Pond member on the lake. That's what he's done for 40 years as a career. And we've had a number of hours-long discussions with him about what are our options, what are the pros and cons of each one. And after each of those discussions, we go through, and there's no great solution, right? The herbicides, there's no question, when you put them down, they do what they're intended to do. But their experience is that over the decades, it's not a good situation. And it's people that have done it over decades realize they need to be doing something different, and it's harder to get out of it.
So you need,
What's happening at
you need
Madness.
a multi-pronged approach. You can't just say, we'll do X. You need to be doing X and Y and Z.
Yeah, I mean, we had hoped that eco-harvesting would be something, we're not using herbicides, we're removing the plants, we're not contributing to the additional sediment in the bottom of the lake, so we're not contributing to the eutrophication that way. But our experience so far is kind of mixed as to how effective it actually is in getting the plants out and how long that effect lasts. And the other issue is that it's wicked expensive. If we found that it really seemed to be an appropriate thing, we were looking to, in the Clean Lakes Committee in Littleton, we were looking to acquire a machine and pay for part of the staff position at DPW to use it and to cut down and make it a more reasonable cost. But we haven't yet concluded that that's really the right system.
No,
So with herbicides, would you use it on the whole lake or what portion of the lake?
The expectation, well, so every year we do plant surveys to see, where the plants are, where the invasive plants are growing. And we take turns between Clean Lakes Committee and Health Lakes and Ponds in funding those surveys. This year, Health Lakes and Ponds is good enough to pay for that. These I have, they're not colors here, they're not going to show.
okay, so,
But the idea is we assess where the invasive plants are dense this year, and then that's where we would.
so you would prioritize application based on where you see a problem, where there are the most plants that need to be dealt with.
Right, right. I will say that in the past, we've done all these applications, treatments, operations on the whole lake. And we've had funding from both Clean Lakes Committee and Health Lakes and Ponds. And both towns have had challenges and changes in the way that these lake activities are funded. Health Lakes and Ponds, since its inception, has used CPC funding for its activities. And 2 years ago, CPC decided that this was no longer an assessment of whether these things are working, because they seem to be working, and they were deciding that it was more along the lines of maintenance, which they were not seeing that it was their mission to fund. My argument would be that they're not doing maintenance, they're preserving natural resources that can't be recreated anywhere else, and they have to be maintained when they are lakes that are surrounded by developed regions have this issue. And
Where's the CPC?
sorry?
What town is the CPC?
This is Westford's. So the short story is 2 years ago, they decided they weren't going to fund Health Lakes and Ponds anymore. And so at that year, the town provided $50,000 for Health Lakes and Ponds. Last year, it was $5,000, and this year,
I got appropriated another $5,000 again.
yeah. So there's not enough. There's no funding for these treatments from Westford. I've reached out to the other lake members in Health Lakes and Ponds over the winter, explaining all of our situation, and they're aware of it, and saying we should work together to try to get more support.
I'm vice chair of CPC.
Yeah,
I do not recall what you're saying, I believe you, but
yeah,
I'm just thinking that you should think about sending us something again. Send it to me.
okay, thank you. Yeah, so the current status is that there's no funding is not available. Health Lakes and Ponds does not have money to fund this kind of thing. Clean Lakes Committee has worked with the town, and they have funding from Select Board, Water Board, Park and Rec, CPC, and they are putting, but their expectation is that it will be matched.
Okay, so I think
So
there are funding, let's
bottom line is, this June, when we do it, it'll be a test, and it'll be a test on half of the lake.
okay, so let's
Kind of
focus.
a good test. We did it here, we didn't do it here.
So let's focus first on the procedural steps we would need to do if this is something we're going to support, and then, where the money comes from, I think, is what this body has to do is
That's a
decide.
subdivision.
Yeah, this body needs to make a decision about supporting it and basically going through the process to enable it. And I think the funding is a separate issue to
Yes.
what we have to do to enable you.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so let's stick with that business first, because I think, that kind of, we have to do that before funding even becomes relevant.
So the question before you tonight is not whether you want to permit this or not. The question is, when we come to ask for your allowing us to do this, should we come with a new notice of intent or with a request to amend the existing orders of conditions?
And
Selfishly, I support I would recommend amending the order of conditions. Again, it's one document for the entirety of the lake, or the portion of the lake in Westford. In addition, as was included as a finding in the recently amended, or in the amended order of conditions, the annual drawdown and now the eco harvesting are altering the same resource area, land under water body of the entire water body through the exposing of the lake bottom sediments and lowering. So any management with herbicide would still be within the same resource area, land under water body, and I would recommend N-dash, right, N-dash, which was, and that the commission find that the change is not significant enough to require the filing of a new notice of intent.
And before we, okay, Jim?
I agree with Matt. Put under not significant enough to require a new filing completely, but we have to do something to advertise exactly what the change is. We shouldn't just say.
No. So this is not.
We shouldn't just put a subject in here saying we're making a minor change to a order of conditions. We should say what chemical we're planning on. We would.
So the amendment
to use and where.
So the amendment would be, would include, so if, the commission determines that this is not a significant enough change, that the proposed change to the plans and,
No new NOI, that's fine.
Right. It will require an amending the existing order of conditions, requires notification in the newspaper, notification to abutters, public hearing with the commission, at which point it's very similar to when they amended the order of conditions to include eco harvesting. They included the various, impacts to the wetlands, or the impacts to the Wetlands Protection Act as identified in the.
As long as those public notices include exactly what we are being asked to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good.
Or the suite of, the suite of herbicides that are proposed to be used, because it may be that there's maybe potentially more than one that might be suitable, and it just,
List more than one.
yes. But before we go ahead, are there any comments or questions from members of the audience? Because I'm supposed to ask that. Okay, so,
Good luck.
thank you. Huh?
I want to know how much money you asked for.
Okay. Yeah.
Is this a CPC question?
Do you remember how much,
So.
what was the request 2 years ago?
I'd prefer, Marilyn, I can talk about this offline, like, you know, this is not kind of.
Yeah, we've got people with other agenda items that are waiting for us to get around to them.
So I'm happy to come
We're an
and
hour
talk to you.
late.
Okay,
Just to
so,
see that I know that.
okay, so Matt, the
Just tell
next,
Matt.
the next step is,
They're the ones that requested.
Yeah, so so if the commission make a motion to, or make a motion that the proposed change is not significant enough to require the filing of notice of intent.
can I have a motion to that effect?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so,
Super, thank you. I have
Thank
one
you.
question. One more question. So, in order to do this, I mean, effectively, we do the same thing, whether it's a notice of intent or, I mean, you get the same information, we have the same notifications, that kind of thing. And I need to come back to you, I need to send, the, request to the DEP, I need to send the request to National Heritage. Can I do all those at the same time?
I believe so, yes.
Okay,
Matt's the expert.
okay, because that'll,
I'll give you a call tomorrow.
right,
Okay.
I think so.
cool, all right, good, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.
Appreciate it.
Okay, moving on to our 7:30 PM agenda item, it's a request to construct a barn and land subject to agricultural preservation restrictions.
I know. You're a little stiff?
Okay. Here we go.
Thank you.
So I'm Lauren Hill from Deer Farm. Say who you are, what were you? You wait till you talk.
Oh,
I did it wrong last
wait
time.
till I talk, then
Okay,
identify
all right.
myself.
So I just wanna thank you for putting us on the agenda so quickly, I appreciate it. And we were here before, which you probably remember. Now we have a way more official plan, so this is an official survey of the site. And it now has the proposed barn, which coincidentally is a 40 by 60, with all of the required setbacks. And so what we are asking is that you sign off on the APR co-holder agreement to say that this commission is okay with us building this barn on the APR.
So I sent out, so this is the draft certificate of approval that was provided at your chair. Again, identifies the APR landowner address, recording information. As this APR is co-held by the Select Board and Conservation Commission, both bodies do need to vote. Brief couple sentences about kind of what the request is. I have drafted some findings noting kind of the facts of the matter. That most notably that pursuant to paragraph B2, the grantor reserves the right for the construction or placing of building or structures for agricultural purposes, including buildings for related retail sales or other agriculturally related purposes, subject to the written approval of the grantee as provided in paragraph C. In accordance with paragraph C, the commission finds that the proposed building is A, authorized by the Agricultural Preservation Restriction General Laws, B, that said building shall not defeat or derogate from the agricultural preservation restriction to provide for the perpetual protection and preservation of agricultural lands, and C, as there are co-holders to the APR, have both made findings. And
Purpose hasn't changed since the last time, right? Storage, sale of agricultural products and storage of equipment?
Yes, and the section that we're building on is not actually suitable for growing anything on. It's the,
That's a restriction anyway, but.
no, but I'm just
I'm good.
Throwing that out.
And I did, as included in the APR, there were kind of 3 conditions of approval as I kind of saw. One, no structure of land, structure or, no, that needs, structure or land upon which is situated, no structure of land upon which is situated shall be sold separately or otherwise severed from the premises or subsequent farm unit. They can't split this up. Further on, I included prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy, the Conservation Commission and/or Select Board and/or their agents shall inspect the building for conformity with this certificate of approval. And lastly, upon satisfactory completion and issuance of the certificate of occupancy, the grantees shall issue to the grantor a certificate of completion in recordable form, which when executed by the state, be recorded so that it is, included on the deed. Again, nothing too, it's all copied for the most part, kind of from the APR, just kind of, just to kind of make sure, it's kind of everybody's responsibility.
Yeah, your co-holder agreement is way fancier than the state's. Well, and I could ask about this later, but as far as the certificate of occupancy, so before we start using the building, we have to have someone from your board and or the select board come in and say, yeah, that's groovy.
Yes, and it's similar to with the orders of conditions issued by the commission. It's just to make sure that, you said you were gonna build a 60 by 40, there's an as-built plan, it's in the general location, and it's, you walk through and say, yep, okay, there's a retail section, there's a storage section, and, nobody has an apartment. So that's the general gist of those 2 conditions of approval. And if, and kind of stealing from the state's very limited certificate of approval, if there are any questions from, I would recommend that the commission vote to approve with conditions the request, and the state only has 1 signature line, so Margaret would be as chair, Margaret would be the signatory.
Can I have a motion to that effect?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. That was all positive.
Yep.
Okay,
This is by June, right? Putting this up.
So
Excuse me?
Putting this up by June, you said, right?
We're going to,
assign
Sign.
do our very best.
Conservation Commission.
You're getting MDR funds for that, right?
Yes.
I intend to go before the select board, and
MDR is my best friend right now.
I intend to go before the select board at their April 8th meeting, second Tuesday in April, so, if that's the case,
Yeah, so we're on the select board agenda, I have it, it's in time.
and then we'll, hopefully they make similar findings, and then, we give them a signed document to send to the state and to record, and then in 2 months build a barn. I mean, I've seen the Amish do it in like 3 days, so I'm
not sure how that part happens.
this last one.
The state part, yeah.
Again, I just copied it from the APR, so, we'll figure, again, I think it goes to whoever your contact is at the state, when yeah, I think this is, again, more so this last part of it, we say, yes, this is done.
It's one of the MDR women.
Make sure it works.
Yeah, I just don't have any idea what that paperwork is, and then.
And actually, who should sign
Yeah, it would probably be.
Which one of the 3 in the room?
It won't, it will go to
Commissioner of
the
Food and
commission, it will go to the same person that signs off on the spending grant
Yeah,
money. That's the assistant commissioner of agriculture, I think. So,
It says the Commissioner of Food and Agriculture.
so it will be somewhat, all right, well, we'll have to see. we'll just have to, so how, I guess my question is, how far along in the barn building process would you guys wanna see it, or you don't wanna see it until we're like ready to?
When you're ready for occupancy from the building commissioner, that's
I'm just
where,
saying that if we can't start using it until we get the certificate of occupancy, as far as getting something from the state.
Well, the occupancy is town.
yeah,
No,
so,
but I'm saying,
so you mean
next
for this,
thing down-
this last
So
one?
I'm fairly sure, based on other things I've had to do with them, that there's like one day a month, or there's like this bizarre timing of when this commissioner person signs things, like all the stuff goes to them and they have like a signing day. So I just don't know if they're, like, so can we not move in until we get that third piece of paper, or can we
No,
move in when
so
we
the
get?
third piece of paper directs us as the grantee to issue you a certificate of completion saying, you were approved to do this work,
Okay,
and then the last piece is us saying you did the work.
okay,
And then whenever you send it to the state
Okay.
and then it gets recorded.
okay, so we'll be able
That's
to
on you,
occupy the building before we get this magical state
Yes.
paper back, whatever it may be.
Yes.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to clarify that, cause I know that they have this
Yeah, no, that's, well, you'll be okay.
signing timeline that is long-ish.
Okay,
All set?
All set.
all
Thank you.
signed.
Did you say who you were?
I take it back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our other 7:30 PM agenda item, the Long for Pond fireworks sampling.
Yes, received a formal proposal from the lake management consultants, and they can do 2 rounds of sampling for 77, or the 2 rounds of sampling in 2 locations and provide a report afterwards for $7,700. I am requesting the commission authorize the expenditure of such.
Can I have a motion? Oh, you got a question?
Yeah, on how much notice, time do they need, because we don't know when this is.
They have general idea, they have kind of some
They can be
loose
responsive.
timeframes, but
So
yeah.
when we hear this is gonna happen, they get out there right away and do the pre-test or the baseline.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can do the pretest well in advance of the.
Whatever, the sooner, the closer it is to before the fireworks, the better, and then right after, okay.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the request to expend up to $7,700 from reserve receipts for the Long for Pond fireworks sampling?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
As was presented to the commission at their last meeting when requesting to start work, the project at the lot formerly known as 2A of 254 Concord Road, which the building commissioner and the E911 committee have now determined to be 252 Concord Road. That won't be confusing ever. The engineer's letter detailed that the house is a slightly different footprint, no closer to the wetlands than previously was approved, and no site grading is affected. In reviewing it, again, as in my role as agent of the commission, and as everything, the house was moving further away from the wetland resource area, I had approved it pursuant to special condition 40. Here's the house plan, the plan provided, and they do show the as-built post and rail fence. Erosion controls were instructed. There's a big hole in the ground right now for the foundation. So this was more just to update the commission, because I know the applicant's engineer kind of touched on it at the last meeting in lieu of them attending, again, for the proposed house moving further away from the wetland, which is always the things I like to see. Continuing with discussion action items, I do not have an update for 20 Keys Road. At the Stony Brook Conservation Area, I have not followed up with the director regarding the hiring of beach attendants for the weekends at the lower beach, and have not scheduled year-end reviews with the summer camp operators. I do not have an update at this time on using the donation from the Friends of EVT for repairs for using their funds in general.
Do we have we been able to identify somebody to request a second?
I have the names, yes.
Oh, okay, so we have somebody to go to,
Yes.
to ask for a second quote. Okay.
The Camp CLO, so the day camp, the septic system replacement is scheduled to occur probably within the next month, if not within the next upcoming weeks. A couple pines do need to be removed, as was identified in the plan and was provided to the CR grantee when the design was originally approved. And so that should be replaced shortly and be functional for the upcoming summer camp season, which at the camp used by the rec department. Regarding Edwards Woods, the conservation area there, I did do a site visit, but doesn't look like I put the photos in. And did observe a dirt bike trail. I'll include that in the commission's next packet and kind of some follow-up to that. For the Freedom Park improvements, kind of discussing with Margaret, we were able to, she thought it best to include kind of explicit activity, kind of the explicit steps into kind of resolving this. I can say that I installed the leash law sign today on the chain, or the post holding the gate across. So that is now up, and I need to bring in tools to remove one of the current signs that are on both sides that say, please be courteous neighbors and pick up after your pets. Do not have an update on the Summer Village conservation restriction. At 20, with the Jarvis Hill Estates CR, I was able to stop out last Thursday. The extent of encroachment from the abutting property owner at 7 Little Bear Hill, in my opinion, was relegated to 2 piles of branches and limbs that that got placed over the stone wall. Tomorrow I'll be sending a letter to the property owner asking them to remove them from the CR parcel and to stay off it unless they plan to access the trail and walk around. Additionally, I have reached out to the trustee or my contact with the trustees requesting the bike jump that was identified last fall to be deconstructed, for lack of a better term, and the trail in that area kind of flattened to consistent with the grade. If any commissioners would like to meet me on site in the upcoming week, I'd be more than happy to. It's a nice hike, a nice little hike loop. But I can certainly show kind of the highlights of it all. But I don't know, in my opinion, I think the previous encroachments back in December of 2023 where, trees were cut, trees and saplings were cut on the conservation restricted parcel. I think I don't think this is comparable to what had occurred, and I don't know if further action is necessary. Again, I can certainly meet with commissioners out there. Again, it's a nice loop. I like walking it.
So this is really a situation where the jurisdiction for taking actions is with the homeowners association for Jarvis Estates because they are the property owner?
Yes. And again, I'll follow, I left a voicemail with the trustee last week. I didn't hear back, so I followed up with an email. And I imagine that maybe nobody listens to their voicemails on their phone, so I mean, it's, so hopefully I hear back and, that the bike jump gets demolished and then, the abutting property owner stays on their own property and just stops doing stuff, not doing stuff in proximity to not their property.
Are any members of the commission interested in doing a site visit to basically see the site and be seen?
As it is now.
So that they know that we're there and we're
So,
looking.
so that we actually see it with our own eyes as opposed to reacting to reports from others, but also to have a presence that shows both the homeowners association and abutters that
We're watching you.
That's a good idea.
yeah, okay.
I'll schedule a non-rainy day.
A week in advance?
I'll try my best.
Okay, Jim, you're looking thoughtful.
The police officer that filed the original report has left the employ of the town. So he's not available for,
I mean, I have his police report. I mean,
yeah, but all we got is the redacted one, right?
I can certainly ask to, I mean,
Well,
Whatever.
but also, and some of it is, yes, that would be a way for getting information, but if, I think some of this, what we're starting to realize is all we can do is go after the homeowners association. Worst case, they would have to go after the abutter and kind of, but yeah, I think seeing it for ourselves and having people see that we're paying attention may be helpful. Okay, so Matt, you'll send out something.
yes, and try to coordinate.
Okay. So moving on to the meeting minutes that were in our packet. I'm assuming people have had a chance to review them. Do anybody, starting with the March 5th, does anybody have any comments or corrections? Okay, because I did.
Okay.
So, and I tend to get really focused on these because down the road, this becomes the public record. This becomes, I think it may actually carry more weight than the recorded videos that would be archived on WCAT. For example, it just, yeah.
So which?
So March 5th.
Yeah.
In the first paragraph, it's the 7th sentence, which says each week they would use that barcode to register for the following Saturday's event. And from what comments that Lydia had made, well, actually, I sent them to Matt, so Matt's kind of put them in.
Sierra has, and so, she was on top of these.
Where are you with this?
So
So if you look up
if you
at
look
the
on the
screen-
screen,
Matt,
Thank you.
Sierra thankfully drafted them into the meeting, into the minutes.
because for me, it was quite a, it really shifted my perspective when she said, no, people do not register for Saturday events. Once they've got a barcode, they can show up to any parkrun event in the world and participate. And it's like, okay, then that is very different than thinking we had people signing up for our event.
So they don't pre-register, they register when they get there?
No, they don't register at all. They just show
Show
up
up.
and get scanned, and at that point, they're participating.
So you don't know ahead of time?
You don't know ahead of time. And so they really have no idea how many people are planning to show up until people start showing up.
Really no way to limit.
No way to limit. They will scan up to 80, but if more people show up wanting to participate, they're not gonna tell people no. They just, anybody else who shows up can participate, so. So those were my first.
But we could put a limit.
No,
We couldn't.
we could put a limit, they will not enforce it.
Oh.
They
The
will-
system.
The system will not. Is the number of people who officially.
I get it.
Okay, but the other thing too is when they send us the reports and the statistics of usage, it's only how many people had their barcode scanned. If other people show up to use it, that is, the numbers that are reported do not include those additional.
So it doesn't represent a true picture.
Correct.
Okay, I got it.
That's a good catch.
Okay, yeah. And then down into the second, June had made a very, I thought she had said a couple of times how concerned she was about the ice that remains in the shady areas. And I really wanted to make sure that, that the icy conditions were something that people had reported as a concern. And Lydia had mentioned that one of the options is to shut it down during the winter, just so that we're not having to deal with that. And then my last one was with the Westford Academy cross-country team, we really need to make clear that their usage is only for those 3 months. So that was just where I
How
was.
did they know that people had finished and like 50 people went in, 50 people came out?
When they get to the end, they scan as they're leaving, and that.
They assign a
and
couple of
some-
volunteers as tail gunners.
There's someone at the
People in the
end.
back.
Yeah.
They assign somebody to follow the last runner. Whoever's in last
Oh.
place, there's 2 people behind them.
Okay, so it's a visual.
And they would just make
Well,
sure.
no, there's a scan.
That isn't
But
what
beyond
she told
that,
us.
beyond that,
Okay.
there's
She told us
visual.
the way they do it is they put a couple of people at the end of the whole run or whatever the event, and they make sure that they don't pass anybody. They
Right,
just make sure that the trail is clear, they pick up litter, they do that kind of stuff, as well as make sure that everybody ahead of them finishes.
right, but when everybody ahead of them finishes, I believe their things get scanned, which is how they would each get their personal times.
That doesn't say anything about what she was asking about.
Oh, you were just making sure that the everybody who scanned for participation gets out.
Everybody
left the
starts,
park, yeah.
finishes, or at least is accounted for at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, one of the question, and I don't know if this is part of the record, and it's certainly not in the minutes, but if somebody gets into the course and then hits that first hill going up to the girls' camp and says, I can't do this, and they turn around and they walk out, they are considered to have left the event. And so that at that point, they're on their own, making their way back to the parking lot.
I don't know about that, but.
Yeah, no, it just, but anyway, so, I just wanted the minutes to be kind of complete, and then we'll be back to have another discussion. So those were my amendments. If nobody else has anything,
I also have, and Sierra caught it, there's a, with Ellen, there's a unnecessary that Sierra caught.
There's what?
An unnecessary
Oh.
It's about how the.
Okay.
okay.
That's confusing.
So can I have a motion to approve the minutes for March 5th, 2025 as amended?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then the March 12th minutes. The only thing that I caught was there was one place where Liam said thus saw, and it should have been Liam said he saw. So if there are no other comments or changes, can I have a motion to approve the minutes for the March 12th, 2025 meeting as amended?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we didn't get the executive session minutes, those will come at a later
Yes.
time. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Yeah, schedule site, again, discuss scheduling a site visit to Jarvis.
Okay,
I'll try to get that and make it a nice sunny day.
okay. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.